Hi, I'm Ramneet. Allow me to introduce you to our club and what this podcast is all about. The AI/ML Club of IIT Delhi is a community of students that are passionate about the fields of AI and ML. We aim to be the one-stop destination for all IIT Delhi students that are interested in these areas. The ML Muse Podcast is a show where we talk to people who are innovating, creating in, and stretching the boundaries of these fields. We bring you their journeys entering and working in these fields, and we hope that you learn as much from them as we did. If you'd like to know more about us, check out our website and follow us on Instagram. The links are in the description below. Welcome to the first episode of the ML Muse podcast. We have with us Mr. Nikhil Gupta, who is an alumnus of the CSE batch at IIT Delhi from 2019, and also the co-founder of a startup called LimeChat. Thank you for coming, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Before we start with the questions, could you give us a brief intro to what you do?
So at my company, basically, I'm one of the co-founders at LimeChat. I started this up with a batchmate of mine from IIT Delhi. So he was also in computer science. His name is Nikhil. And together at LimeChat, what we're kind of trying to do is we're creating artificial intelligence. Leveraging artificial intelligence to create smart chatbots for online brands. So these are the brands which are selling some sort of products from an online website, and they're trying to use automation technology to help manage their customer support and to help increase their sales. So we're doing a very targeted use of artificial intelligence in this space, and we're actually a pretty recent startup in the context of things. We started in 2020, and things have been working out pretty well so far. And we hopefully we can continue growing into the future.
Right, that's awesome. So I'll start with how the beginning of your journey into the field of AI and ML. When did you start your journey, and what was your motivation for starting it?
Well, I've had a pretty topsy-turvy kind of journey. I've always been inspired by tech throughout my life. I've lived in primarily two places in my life. I've lived half of my life in Silicon Valley, in Cupertino, right outside the Apple headquarters. So I've always been inspired by tech, and I've seen those companies grow around me. So I kind of knew I wanted to get involved in tech as quickly as possible. There were always dreams of being a doctor also somewhere that was dropped along the line. But, we finally decided internally that we want to go for non-med, like me and my parents. And then we stuck to that, tried to crack JE. I actually didn't make it to computer science. I was actually in electrical in IIT Delhi. So I was apparently going to become an electrical engineer. But what happened is by luck or some random occurrences, I was able to get a good enough CG in the first year to kind of do a department change into computer science. And over electrical and computer science, I always had an inner passion more towards coding, because it's a very logical kind of paradigm. And that's kind of something that excites me a little bit more. So I thought it's an opportunity. So let's get involved. And I think because I made a switch, it was something that I had a choice to do. It got me more inspired to, working harder while I was pursuing computer science. And again, when we're talking about the latest type of technologies that are being used in this field or being developed in this field, I had a choice of networks, computer design, architecture, operating systems. But the thing that really got me excited was data-driven decision making or data-driven algorithms. So that's kind of where the basis of ML is. And there are many things that happened along the way as we discovered ourselves, as I discovered myself in IIT, that kind of pushed me in the right direction. And I got to work with the right professors, do the right type of projects, and eventually it got me aligned in this field of AI.
Right. So that's quite an amazing journey. I want to dig a little bit more into that. So what were the courses which you remember and that you took at IIT Delhi, which sort of helped you understand more of this field?
I think the first major course that we took would have to be in my 5th semester. So this was a course taken by Professor Mossam. He took his AI course. It's a very famed course in IIT. And I just loved it. I just, from the very beginning, it was a very project-oriented course where we would have coding assignments, and that's something I just love. I'm one of those people who prefers implementation over theoretical computer science. So I always like those type of courses where you would have coding assignments, you could actually learn and implement at the same time. And Professor Mossam, the way he structures his course, he has an approach of calling his course a breadth first approach. That he covers a lot of topics in AI instead of going very deep into any one. And I think that kind of helps us kind of explore what are the possibilities, what are the type of things we could get involved in. And I think that was very, very helpful to spark our curiosity. Also, the type of course projects that Mossam had assigned for us, I think those were really, really fun, really, really interesting. And the type of experience I had with those projects was unlike any other kind of subject I did. So I think that's kind of when I had in my mind that, okay, I want to do something I really care about or I'm having fun with. And that's where it caught my imagination. Especially one particular project I remember very fondly. It was, we had to kind of create an artificial intelligence game engine to play one of the games that it's a very famous assignment that Professor Mossam has, that every year he chooses some new game and you have to create a game engine around it. So in our year, we had to play the fictitious game of TAC. So it was a game popularized by the book series, The Kingkiller Chronicles. And I had read that series, so it was a pleasure for me to, actually play that game in real life. And so we built a bot around it. And the bot was supposed to be AI smart, as if everyone in that classroom would be paired up with an assignment partner. And we would have our AI bots, AI game players play against each other in like a competition mode.
Right.
And I'm a very, very competitive person by nature. So that I just knew that I'm going to spend more time on this type of assignment and put more energy and make sure that, we come out victorious on top. So there were 3 different competitions and we worked really hard on it and we were able to win one of those 3 competitions. So it was a very good validation. We tried a lot of techniques. And that's kind of, another point that kind of turned it in favor of, pursuing AI.
Right. So you talked about implementation versus theoretical computer science. So that sort of brings me to another one of the questions that we had, which is that you've done a research internship at Carnegie Mellon, and you also undertook some research at IIT Delhi. But you eventually settled in a startup where you're doing real life problem solving. So how would you contrast both of those things, and what are the characteristics which you like for both of those?
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. So when I was so this is the end of the 3rd year. So I've taken the AI courses. I've taken up the preliminary ML course that's taught by Professor Parag. And I also took up several courses by Professor Sayan Ranu at that time. He was into data mining. And that was primarily what my research was going to be about at Carnegie Mellon. So I had a very good opportunity to work with Professor Christos Philoutsos over there. And he's regarded as one of the grandfathers of data mining. It was absolute pleasure working with him. So when I was in my end of my 3rd year, I had just been introduced to AI and ML, and I was trying to make myself understand what works for me. Do I want to get into research or do I want to go towards, more applied science kind of role? So I would say it was more of an exploration phase for me at that moment of time. I chose not to go for an industrial internship. I had done another research internship in my 2nd year at EPFL. That wasn't really research. It was more about, you were still in your 2nd year, so they don't entrust us with actual research projects. So it was more of automation and scripting. So, but this was the first time I would actually get a chance to read research papers, come up with an algorithm of my own. And I wanted to do something to be very, very implementation heavy rather than being theoretically heavy. So I made my intentions known at the beginning of that internship at Carnegie Mellon as a research assistant. And the type of projects I worked on over there were very, very implementation heavy. They were something that could be used by real life people, real life analysts. We were trying to kind of figure out anomalies in large feature data sets. So we were looking through bank data, television data, all sorts of data from different sources to find out anomalies in that. So it was a very, very active and interactive kind of project that I was involved with. So I really enjoyed that. Then further, I was part of the dual degree program here at IIT. So I had my 4th and 5th years, I could actually pick up research. So I chose to do that with Professor Mossam. So I decided that I would be doing research for about 4 semesters, for 2 full years. And I asked him to give me a sort of a very implementation heavy project. So I was very fortunate. He had one project in his portfolio about that, and that was around So it was very interesting. I mean, we've all heard about chatbots around us being used. So it was one of the most implementation friendly kind of projects I could have been assigned to. And I was very happy and fortunate and great. I had my gratitude to him towards that. So that project was along the lines of creating an ML architecture, a deep learning architecture, and kind of devising all the different steps and all the different parts of it to kind of get a chatbot working with an actual human. And that was very, very interesting. And I spent 2 years researching with that. I was working with a PhD student. His name is Dinesh. We had awesome time together, and we were able to publish two papers in top tier NLP journals during this research. And I was able to publish my paper from Carnegie Mellon as well. So overall, I had a fantastic time with research. But at the end, when I shifted towards the world of startups, I had a very big realization that what we were actually doing in the research field was very, very far away from what's actually implemented in real life. So all the research I did as compared to what real chatbot companies were using was just so far off that I felt that what we're doing is a little bit intangible for me, for my liking, for my taste. So I kind of shifted gears. I shifted more towards actually being one of those implementers. When I was looking for job opportunities, I was looking for more of an applied science role where I would be able to apply such technologies. And I ended up, getting an opportunity to start up a company of my own. And I wanted to kind of keep those same principles alive, using the latest cutting edge research and tech and bringing it to the real world.
Right, right. So you talked about like the gap between research and where industry is actually. So so sometimes what happens is there are practical reasons for why cutting edge research is not really cost effective, maybe sometimes practically. So did you experience some of that gap between, or were you able to use the latest research when you were actually running your company, or did you have to make some cutoffs, some compromises on that end?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question actually, because of two parts. One is because of the way that research is, how research progresses. I mean, research is so instrumental to everything we're doing right now in AI and ML. What happens is we research about a topic, a paper is published, a new algorithm is made, a new leap or advancement is made in the field, but it doesn't have an immediate impact. It takes time, it takes more subsequent levels of research on top of it, on that idea. And soon that idea is kind of shipped and packaged into something that could be used in actual coding. For example, for all the coders out there, when you're using ML, there's so many algorithms that were developed. And after a couple of years, we have a fantastic library called sklearn that people
Right.
who are coding in Python can just import and start using gradient descent right off the bat or logistic regression right off the bat. But it took us some time to move from those actual research papers to a library. And that's similar in fields of deep learning research as well. We've had a huge advancement in terms of transformer technology, at least in NLP, that can allow us to learn better word embeddings and have a much better result on accuracies in real world tasks such as machine translation, text generations. And I think one example of that was launched this year. It was called GPT-3 by OpenAI, and they use transformer technology that has been around for about 2 years now, and it took them 2 years to finally make it into something that was user friendly and could be used by people. So I think we are kind of getting there. There are more and more frameworks that are adopting latest AI papers, but it does take time. So what I understood is it would take a couple of years for that research to transcend into something that is usable for the industry. And right now, what we're using is a mixture of something that was developed a couple of years ago, plus our own inherent knowledge about that research and how it needs to be applied. And that's something that I think gives us a little bit of an edge over other people, because rather than waiting for that technology to be released in a couple of years, we actually know how to use it and how to tweak it to use it for today.
Right, right. Um, so I'd also now like to get into why you chose to do a startup. So for starters, when was the idea of LimeChat conceived? You mentioned that you'd done a NLP project in your last 2 years. So was that somehow an inspiration for starting this?
Yeah, I mean, a startup has. So I belong from a very business-oriented family. Everyone in my family is associated with a business of their own, not necessarily in tech, but a lot of manufacturing, different type of verticals. So I was always been pushed internally that to create value and to have that drive, you really need to be doing something of your own. I always had a plan that I would, get some work experience by working at some top tier companies, maybe do some research or something, and then start a startup by after going to maybe an MBA college. But I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do a startup. I think that was evident from my upbringing, and the first day I entered IIT, I knew that's what I was going to do in the long term. So I kind of built myself up to kind of fill out the role of an entrepreneur. So at every moment I got, I would try to choose a leadership kind of opportunity. I would try to figure out what skills are my weaknesses, what skills are my strengths, and try to boost my weaknesses up by. So I had one particular problem about being a perfectionist about things. So it was very hard for me to delegate work, and that's not how you can actually scale a team or work with a team. So anytime I got an opportunity to kind of work as a leader, I would try to manage my delegation processes. So I would pick up on things like that. I would make plans on how to improve my skill set, so I could eventually become a leader in the future. So I kind of relished all those type of opportunities. But again, in the back of my mind, it was always that let's get some experience, find the right type of co-founder, and then we'll start something. So I actually, applied for some deep tech companies to work at. I got an offer at some HFTs here, Tower Research Capital in India. That didn't really excite me because they weren't using like research or anything very sophisticated tech. I got an opportunity also at Amazon Seattle, part of the Lex team. So this was very, very akin to the type of research I was doing. It was pretty much in the same field. All the professors had read my paper as well. So it was very well tuned to the type of work I was doing. It was a natural extension of that, the Amazon Lex team. So the Lex team basically is a chatbot team in Amazon. It allows you to use the Lex platform for anyone to create the chatbot of their own. So I had an opportunity there, but before I got a chance to go, so this is my final semester actually in IIT. This is my 10th semester. I'm kind of done with my master's thesis also pretty much. And at that moment of time, Aniket comes back and reaches out to me. So he had graduated in 2018. He was part of the 4-year program, and he was doing research at MIT for 6 months. And he also had the same disillusionment as I did, that what we're doing at research isn't really being translated into the real world immediately, and he wanted to do something more impactful at a faster pace. So we actually got on a call. We knew each other. He was also studying under Professor Mossam, and we had common friends. So we got in touch, and we kind of clicked together. We kind of had the same kind of motivations, and we kind of knew that let's give it a shot. I had my final semester. He came back from America, and he just started living in my dorm room, and we were kind of thinking of ideas at that moment of time. So we actually didn't start LimeChat right off. LimeChat isn't our first startup, very frankly. We had started up a company called Conscience that was part of my first stint as an entrepreneur. And we did that for most of 2019. And LimeChat was actually started up in 2020 as a second attempt. So that was the first time we actually got involved. And it was just so much fun, so much excitement at what we did in the first startup that we decided, we're not going to go for our jobs and we're going to do this full time. Even though Conscience wasn't the right way to go forward, we knew that, we wanted to kind of build a company that was more to our taste and liking. And hence we went back to kind of building chatbots in the real world. And yeah.
So you talked about you polished your leadership skills here at IIT Delhi. So now that you spent almost about a year leading a startup, have there been any lessons that you can share about leadership that you learned? Or yeah.
Okay. I think leadership is something. It's not a theoretical kind of topic. It's something that you really need to experience and go through the phases, learn the ups and downs of that to kind of understand what it really means. So I mean, throughout my journey of the ups and downs of leadership, I've had a lot of failures in between. So even doing Conscience, I think the first step of leadership that I had an opportunity to pursue was working with interns, bringing on interns into the company, delegating them some sort of work, and making sure that it was productive, that I'm actually gaining time. I'm not spending more time explaining what the project needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And I'm actually getting a return on my time investment. And I was apparently very bad at that, it turned out. I spent more time, delegating, micromanaging the small tasks. And in the end, I always felt that if I had done that task myself, I would have saved time and done a better job. It's just wasting time. So you've got to learn how to, give ownership, I would say, definitely, to people you're working with, at least your team, so that they can also take some decisions of their own. You have to let go a little bit, not micromanage as much, And even if things are working at maybe an 80% efficiency, it still works. It's okay. It's still fine. Not everyone has to work at the same pace you do. And there are many other things about what a leader needs to be doing. My job isn't just to make sure the work is done, but also to make sure that people are comfortable around me. People are happy with their job. People are inspired and motivated. They're part of the same culture. I think culture is one of the most important aspects to any company you work at. People at LimeChat should feel like they're building something for the future, and they're all part of this amazing team that we have kind of constructed around them. Everyone should have confidence in their abilities, and we kind of make sure that people are feeling comfortable while they're working. I think all of this goes hand in hand while you're learning about how to be a natural leader.
Right. Um, so so now I want to come to some maybe advice or tips for people who want to get started in this field, and especially for most of our audience is from IIT Delhi. Um, so the first question I want to ask is, recently there is in this field of ML and AI, there's almost a sort of craze of people trying out online courses and certifications and ML enthusiasts that we see on LinkedIn. So do you think the craze is here to stay, or do you think it could be a little too much?
I don't think it's a little too much. I personally believe that people making the jump into getting into AI and ML it's if they're convinced about it. See, it's like JE. Unless you know what you're really doing, but that's true for anything in life actually. Unless you're actually sure about what you're doing, rather than getting into like a following the next person behind you. Some people like research. Some people like computer science in general. Some people might want to become activist, socialist. It's all about the person. You can never judge what you want to do as a person based on the person next to you. You should never make that decision. So if you're actually interested in pursuing something in AIML for the sake of it, not for the sake of they're the ones who get the best packages, or they're the ones who get an opportunity to get at Microsoft or Google. If that's your motivation, then I think it becomes you're part of the rat race in that sense, in some sort of sense, and you kind of forget about the magic that these technologies are really trying to create. But people who are enthusiasts, who really care, they're actually intrigued. I think there's a lack of choices also, in my opinion. If you look at computer science graduate who's about to graduate, he has to kind of choose what type of subject or sub-subject in computer science do they want to become experts at, right? You have to kind of choose one and move forward with it to kind of build a profile in life. That could again be operating systems, computer architecture. Generally, a lot of those older subjects are seen to be more legacy kind of subjects now. They're the type of job opportunities in those fields are something you get at really large MNCs, but not some of the fresher, newer type of startups or newer type of companies. I think all those new companies are looking for the next level of tech, and that is coming through AI and ML. So overall, I don't think it's an overhyped kind of thing. And if IIT is not getting into AI and ML, who is? I personally feel that from people from other computer science graduates from other colleges as well, they're really kind of pushing into this field as well. So I think we need a lot more IITians pursuing AI and ML. Now, coming to coursework, I think that's not enough. People feel that they've done the Andrew NG course and they're on track to become an ML scientist. I'm telling you, Andrew NG's algorithms, the problems that you go through, they are so standard. All the answers are available online. There are no real tough challenges. I think ML is not about the fact that I know algorithms A, B, and C. It's the fact when they don't work. I think that's all there is to be an experienced ML or AI scientist. You understand how the data actually interacts with these algorithms when it gives a good result or doesn't give a good result. Technically, like it goes back to the same fact. We all have access to the Python library sklearn. So if anyone wants to write a gradient descent code, it takes 4 lines. That's it. But an ML scientist is the one who can really push that accuracy from 50% output to its 95% output. And for that, you need to know the beautiful algorithms, the neural networks, how things are interacting with each other. And for that, you really need to saturate yourself into the field. So if you're not willing to do that, there are going to be hundreds and hundreds of people who are going to be better than you in this field. And even though you're an IITian, you still won't be able to get a job at those top places, or people eventually will get tired of you.
Right. I think that's pretty nice advice. So the next question that we want to ask you is about how is the present scenario in in AI or ML, the present space, and even the startup space in India. How is it different from when you were initially starting out? Have there been any changes that you've seen?
Yeah, I think definitely. Overall, if you think about it, the startup ecosystem in India is still very, very nascent. So we're getting a lot of ops related startups coming up in the recent years. So when I started, ops was one of the biggest things coming up. So you have like startups like Revigo, Shadowfax, again from IIT Delhi alum, and they're all focused around operation management in India because it's such a big deal. So there's so many different problems that just don't have solutions for yet at the moment. So it's like basic building from first principles. There's so many opportunities that still are available here in India, and people are really going after that. I think AI and ML is something that comes in stage two. So now I have a logistics company that's set up. How do I make it more efficient? I think by the nature of this field, AI kind of helps us to automate things. It helps us to identify patterns and use those patterns to kind of become more efficient. So generally, when you build a company from first principles, I want to maybe in the second stage of that company apply these algorithms. So now, as the Indian ecosystem is kind of maturing, more and more companies are shifting towards efficiency, and now they're seeing more and more space, more and more budget for automated solutions, and that is triggering a new set of growth for a new set of AI companies coming up. And more and more VCs, venture capitalists who invest in these startups are also getting more and more involved in AI as a domain of their expertise. There is Pi Ventures who has a thesis specifically for AI specific companies, and there's Stellaris as well, who has kind of even done joint programs to kind of identify the top leading AI startups in the nation. So there's a lot of push being done in that direction, and it's going to be there for the next couple of years at least.
Right. Um, if you had a time machine to go back to when you were in your, say, second year, would you give any advice to yourself?
I mean, I'm actually glad of how things worked out overall. There's a lot of failures in between, a lot of them, and I don't think I want to tell myself to avoid those failures because I am what I am right now because I understand those failures as well. Um, Overall, I think I had my own choices to make during this whole process, but I feel like I'm in the right place right now. So I don't want to go back, tell myself something, and not be in this position at this moment. So I don't have any advice for myself.
Right. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for giving us a lot of valuable advice.
Definitely, anytime. It was a pleasure interacting with you.